Welcome back with another exciting video. Enjoy watching and don't forget to like and leave a comment.
What if one of the darkest secrets in human history was never buried, only hidden? What if deep within the forgotten lands of ancient Africa, there existed a place so mysterious that explorers, soldiers, and entire villages vanished without a trace? And what if the few people who survived the journey returned with terrifying stories about shadows moving beneath the earth, strange symbols glowing in the night, and voices calling their names from the darkness? Tonight's story is inspired by real African legends, mysterious historical accounts, forgotten expedition records, and unexplained disappearances that still disturb researchers to this day. Because sometimes the oldest places on Earth hide the deadliest secrets. In the summer of 1931, British historian Edward Harrington arrived in Central Africa with a small research team searching for something most scholars believed was only a myth. For years, Harrington had studied ancient tribal records, lost Portuguese journals, and fragmented cave drawings discovered near remote villages deep within the Congo Basin. Every clue pointed toward the same terrifying legend, a hidden underground city older than recorded African civilization itself. The locals called it the Hollow Kingdom. Most outsiders laughed at the stories, but the tribes living near the dense forests refused to even speak its true name after sunset. According to the elders, the city was built thousands of years before European explorers ever reached Africa. They believed an unknown civilization had once ruled the region, using strange knowledge that seemed impossible for its time. The legends described massive stone tunnels beneath the earth, walls covered with symbols no one could translate, and underground chambers where people disappeared forever. Even more disturbing were the stories about the Watchers. No one knew exactly what the Watchers were. Some villagers claimed they were ancient spirits protecting the city. Others believed they were human once, but changed into something else after entering the underground ruins. Edward Harrington dismissed most of these stories as superstition, at least in the beginning. His team included 5 men: Thomas Reed, a cartographer from London; Samuel Brooks, a wildlife expert; Daniel Carter, a photographer; Joseph Miller, a geologist; and a local translator named Kamba. The moment they arrived near the remote village of Mabala, something felt wrong. The villagers watched them silently. No children played outside. No music echoed through the village at night. And every single home had strange protective symbols painted above the doors using white ash. When Harrington asked about the symbols, an elderly woman simply whispered, "They help us stay unseen." That night, Kamba revealed something even stranger. He explained that villagers often heard noises coming from beneath the forest after midnight. Deep metallic sounds, distant screams, and what sounded like drums echoing underground. Several hunters had vanished during the previous year. Only one returned alive. According to witnesses, the survivor wandered back into the village completely naked, covered with cuts, and unable to speak. 3 days later, he died after repeatedly scratching strange symbols into the dirt floor of his hut. Harrington saw this as proof that fear and isolation had created mass paranoia among the villagers. He ignored the warnings. The expedition entered the forest 2 days later. At first, everything seemed normal. The jungle was thick and unbearably humid. Giant trees blocked most sunlight from reaching the ground. Strange insects filled the air with endless noise. But after several hours of travel, Daniel Carter noticed something disturbing. There were no animal sounds, no birds, no monkeys, nothing. The deeper they traveled, the quieter the forest became. By sunset, the silence felt unnatural. That night, Thomas Reed claimed he heard footsteps circling their camp. The others assumed it was an animal, but Reed insisted the footsteps sounded human, slow, deliberate, watching them. The next morning, they discovered footprints surrounding the campfire, bare human footprints.
But the prints had only 3 toes. Joseph Miller tried to joke about it, but nobody laughed, especially after Kamba suddenly refused to continue deeper into the jungle. He begged Harrington to turn back immediately. "The forest knows we are here now," he warned. Harrington became angry and accused Kamba of trying to sabotage the expedition. Reluctantly, Kamba continued. 3 days later, they found the first ruins. Massive stone pillars rose from the jungle floor, covered in vines and ancient carvings, unlike anything Harrington had ever seen before. The symbols resembled no known African language. Some looked almost mathematical. Others resembled stars, spirals, and human figures with hollow black eyes. Daniel Carter spent hours photographing the ruins, while Joseph Miller examined the stone. What he discovered made no sense. The pillars appeared thousands of years older than nearby civilizations, yet the stone showed signs of advanced cutting techniques impossible for ancient tools. That night, Samuel Brooks disappeared. One moment he was sitting beside the fire, the next he was gone. No screams, no struggle, nothing. The team searched the jungle for hours. Finally, they found Samuel's rifle leaning against a tree nearly half a mile from camp. Beside it, strange symbols had been scratched into the dirt. The same symbols seen in the village after the hunter's death. Fear spread through the group. Thomas Reed demanded they leave immediately, but Harrington refused. He believed they were close to discovering one of the greatest archaeological finds in human history. The next morning, they continued deeper into the jungle. Eventually, the trees opened into a massive clearing, and there, hidden beneath layers of vines and stone, stood a giant entrance descending underground. The entrance looked ancient beyond imagination. Massive stone stairs vanished into complete darkness beneath the earth. Cold air flowed upward from the tunnel, air that smelled old, rotten, dead. Kamba immediately fell to his knees in terror. "The Hollow Kingdom," he whispered. No one spoke. Even Harrington looked shaken. But curiosity overcame fear. They lit lanterns and descended into the darkness. The underground tunnel stretched farther than any of them expected. The walls were covered in carvings depicting strange ceremonies, human sacrifices, and enormous shadow-like figures standing above kneeling crowds. As they moved deeper underground, they noticed something horrifying. The walls looked polished, not by tools, by touch, as if countless hands had rubbed against them for centuries. Hours passed underground. Then, Daniel Carter stopped walking. His lantern shook violently. He pointed toward the darkness ahead. At first, Harrington saw nothing. Then, the shadows moved. A tall figure stood motionless at the far end of the corridor, human-shaped but impossibly thin. Its eyes reflected the lantern light like glass. The figure disappeared before anyone could react. Panic spread instantly. Thomas Reed wanted to run back immediately, but Harrington convinced the group they were imagining things due to exhaustion. They continued. Soon, the tunnel opened into a gigantic underground chamber. The room was enormous. Stone pillars stretched upward into darkness. At the center stood what appeared to be an ancient throne carved from black stone. Behind it, symbols covered the walls from floor to ceiling. Joseph Miller examined them carefully before turning pale. He recognized repeating astronomical patterns. The carvings mapped stars exactly as they appeared thousands of years ago. But one symbol appeared repeatedly beside the star maps, a dark circle swallowing smaller circles around it. Daniel Carter suddenly screamed.
Everyone turned. He stood frozen near one of the walls. At first, nobody understood what terrified him. Then Harrington raised his lantern. Human bodies. Dozens of them, perfectly preserved inside the stone walls. Their mouths hung open in silent screams. Some looked ancient, others looked disturbingly recent. One corpse still wore modern clothing. Kamba collapsed in fear. "The Watchers keep them," he whispered. Before anyone could respond, a loud metallic sound echoed through the chamber. Then another, then dozens more. The sounds came from deep within the tunnels surrounding them. Something was moving underground. Fast. The lantern flames flickered violently. Thomas Reed panicked and ran toward the tunnel entrance alone. Moments later, his screams echoed through the darkness. Then, silence. The remaining men stood frozen. Harrington shouted for Reed repeatedly. No answer came back, only distant footsteps, slowly approaching. Daniel Carter suddenly pointed his camera toward the darkness and took a photograph using flash powder. For one terrifying second, the chamber illuminated completely, and they saw them. Figures standing between the pillars, tall, thin, motionless. Watching. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. The light vanished instantly. Darkness returned. Then the whispers began, soft voices echoing through the chamber, calling their names, one by one. Kamba started screaming uncontrollably. Joseph Miller grabbed Harrington and begged him to leave immediately. Finally, Harrington agreed. The men ran through the tunnels as whispers followed them from every direction. Sometimes the voices sounded human, sometimes they sounded mechanical. At one point, Daniel Carter swore he saw figures crawling across the tunnel ceilings above them. Then their lanterns suddenly died. Complete darkness swallowed them. Panic erupted instantly. Men crashed into walls while distant footsteps echoed closer. Harrington desperately relit the lantern. When the light returned, Daniel Carter was gone. Only his camera remained on the ground, still warm. The surviving men fled upward toward the jungle entrance. Behind them, shadows moved rapidly through the tunnels. Something chased them, but they never saw exactly what it was. They escaped the underground ruins just before sunrise. Kamba refused to stop running, neither did Joseph Miller. The three survivors stumbled through the jungle for 2 days without food or sleep. But the forest itself seemed different now. Sometimes they heard whispers behind the trees. Sometimes they saw figures watching from the darkness. And every night, they heard drums beneath the earth. On the third day, Joseph Miller vanished while gathering water near a river. Harrington found only blood beside the riverbank. No body, no footprints, nothing else. By the time Harrington and Kamba finally returned to Imbala village, both men looked completely broken. The villagers immediately locked them inside separate huts. For days, neither man spoke. Then, Kamba disappeared during the night. Some believed he fled into the jungle. Others believed something came for him. Edward Harrington survived long enough to return to England months later, but according to historical accounts, he was never the same again. Friends described him as paranoid, terrified of darkness, and obsessed with strange symbols he constantly sketched into notebooks. He claimed something had followed him out of Africa. In 1933, Harrington vanished from his apartment in London. Police found his room covered in the same mysterious symbols discovered inside the underground ruins. His final journal entry contained only one sentence: "They were never protecting the city from us. They were protecting us from what lives below." For decades, most historians dismissed the story as fiction, created by a traumatized explorer. Until 1978. That year, a French mining company operating near remote regions of Central Africa discovered unusual underground tunnels beneath the earth. Workers reported hearing voices underground. Several miners vanished, and one survivor described seeing thin figures with shining eyes watching from the darkness. The mining operation shut down permanently weeks later. Official reports blamed unstable tunnels, but rumors spread quickly among nearby villages. The old legends returned. Even today, certain tribes in Central Africa refuse to enter specific regions of the jungle after sunset. Some elders still paint protective symbols above their doors, and some claim the drums beneath the earth never stopped. Modern satellite technology has revealed unusual underground structures beneath parts of the Congo Basin, though most researchers still debate their origins. Most scientists reject supernatural explanations, but many local communities continue believing ancient forces still exist beneath the forests, waiting, watching, listening. Because Africa is one of the oldest inhabited places on Earth. Its lands hold mysteries older than recorded history. Lost kingdoms, buried civilizations, ancient rituals, and secrets that may never fully be explained. Maybe the Hollow Kingdom was only a myth created by fear. Or maybe Edward Harrington truly discovered something humanity was never meant to find. Something ancient, something intelligent, something hidden beneath the earth for thousands of years. And perhaps the most terrifying possibility is this: what if those underground ruins are still there today, silent beneath the forests, unexplored, undisturbed, waiting for the next group of curious explorers to descend into the darkness and never return again?
What if the ocean was hiding an ancient secret older than human civilization itself? What if, somewhere along the forgotten coast of Africa, there existed a cursed island so terrifying that sailors avoided it for centuries and governments quietly erased it from maps? And what if the people who disappeared there were never truly gone? Tonight's story is inspired by real African maritime legends, unexplained disappearances near the Atlantic coast, abandoned colonial records, and mysterious stories passed down for generations by fishermen who still refuse to sail near certain waters after dark, because sometimes the sea does not return what it takes. In 1964, a young American journalist named Michael Carter arrived in West Africa searching for a story that could change his career forever. At the time, rumors had begun spreading across international newspapers about strange disappearances near the Gulf of Guinea. Cargo boats vanished without distress calls, fishing crews disappeared overnight, and survivors who returned alive
told stories so disturbing that most authorities dismissed them as madness. Michael believed the rumors were exaggerated, but he also believed fear created the best stories. So when he heard whispers about the Forbidden Island, known only as the Sleeping Shore, he became obsessed. According to local legends, the island appeared only during certain tides. Some fishermen claimed it was cursed. Others believed it was not an island at all, but the remains of an ancient civilization swallowed by the sea thousands of years ago. An elderly fisherman in Ghana told Michael something he never forgot. "The island is alive," the old man whispered. "It waits for people who do not belong there." Michael laughed at the warning. He had spent years covering wars, political corruption, and dangerous criminal groups across different countries. Ghost stories did not scare him, at least not yet. After weeks of searching, Michael assembled a small crew willing to help him reach the forbidden waters. The group included Robert Hayes, an American photographer, Samuel Mensah, a local sailor familiar with the coastline, Peter Collins, a British historian, and Kwesi, an elderly fisherman who reluctantly agreed to guide them. Kwesi made one condition before the journey began. "If the drums start," he warned, "we leave immediately." Nobody understood what he meant. The expedition departed just before sunrise aboard a small fishing vessel. At first, the journey felt normal. The ocean remained calm, the weather was clear, but several hours from shore, strange things began happening. Their compass stopped working, the radio filled with static, and thick fog suddenly rolled across the water despite the clear skies above. Samuel Mensah looked visibly nervous. "These waters are wrong," he muttered. Michael assumed the equipment problems were caused by moisture and poor weather conditions. Then, Robert Hayes noticed something disturbing floating beside the boat. A wooden mask, ancient-looking, covered with strange symbols. Peter Collins immediately recognized the carvings. They resembled symbols connected to old West African spiritual rituals dating back centuries. But what terrified him most was the condition of the mask. It looked new, as if someone had placed it in the water recently. Kwesi refused to touch it. "Do not bring it aboard," he warned. "No object from the sleeping shore should ever leave the sea." The crew continued deeper into the fog. Hours passed. Then, suddenly, the island appeared. At first, it looked impossible. Dark stone cliffs rose from the ocean like broken teeth. Ancient ruins stood along the shoreline beneath thick jungle vegetation. Massive stone statues stared toward the sea with hollow eyes. And strangely, no birds flew above the island. No sound came from the jungle. Nothing moved. Even the waves seemed quieter near the shore. Michael felt fear for the first time since beginning the expedition, but curiosity pushed him forward. The crew anchored near the beach shortly before sunset. The moment they stepped onto the island, Samuel Mensah froze. Footprints covered the sand. Human footprints, fresh. But according to every local story, nobody had visited the island in decades. Kwesi immediately wanted to leave, but Michael convinced the group to explore for only one night. That decision would destroy them all. The island felt unnatural from the beginning. The air smelled strange, like salt mixed with decay. The ruins scattered across the shoreline appeared unbelievably ancient, yet some structures showed signs of recent activity. Small fires had burned recently, broken tools lay near the ruins, and several stone pathways had been cleared through the jungle. Someone had been living there, or something. As darkness approached, the group discovered the remains of an old Portuguese settlement hidden among the trees. collapsed wooden buildings surrounded a massive stone structure partially buried beneath vines. Peter Collins believed the ruins dated back nearly 500 years. Inside one building, Robert Hayes discovered journals written in Portuguese. Most pages had rotted away, but several passages remained readable. One sentence appeared repeatedly throughout the journals. "The drums beneath the water are growing louder." Another entry described sailors disappearing at night after hearing voices calling from the ocean. The final pages became increasingly chaotic. Symbols covered entire sections of writing, and the final sentence chilled everyone. "We should never have opened the chamber." Before anyone could discuss the journals further, a deep sound echoed across the island. Boom, boom, boom. A slow, rhythmic drum coming from somewhere beneath the ground. Kwesi immediately panicked. "We leave now," he shouted, but Michael refused. He believed someone else was hiding on the island and using the drums to scare intruders away. Against Kwesi's warnings, the group followed the drums deeper into the jungle. The drums grew louder. Boom, boom, boom. Soon they discovered stone stairs descending underground beneath the ancient ruins. Cold air rose from the darkness below, and carved at the entrance were the same strange symbols seen on the wooden mask in the ocean. Samuel Mensah refused to enter. So did Kwesi, but Michael, Robert, and Peter descended anyway, carrying lanterns and cameras. The underground tunnel stretched far beneath the island. Ancient carvings covered the walls. The images depicted enormous waves destroying cities, shadow-like figures rising from the ocean, and humans kneeling before strange beings with black, empty eyes. Peter Collins realized the carvings were far older than the Portuguese settlement above, thousands of years older. Then, Robert Hayes discovered something horrifying: human bones, hundreds of them, piled against the tunnel walls, some ancient, some disturbingly modern. One skeleton still wore fragments of military clothing. Another wore what looked like modern diving equipment. The deeper they traveled, the louder the drums became.
Boom, boom, boom. But eventually, Michael realized something terrifying. The drums were not echoes. They were heartbeats. Massive, slow, alive. The tunnel opened into a gigantic underground chamber, flooded with black seawater. Ancient stone pillars rose from the water into darkness above. At the center stood a massive circular platform covered in symbols, and surrounding it were dozens of human figures standing perfectly still. At first, Michael thought they were statues. Then one of them moved. The figures slowly turned toward the explorers. Their skin looked pale and swollen. Seaweed hung from their bodies. Black liquid dripped from their mouths, and their eyes were completely empty. Robert Hayes screamed. The figures began walking toward them silently through the shallow water. Michael ordered everyone to run, but Peter Collins refused to move. He stared at the carving surrounding the chamber. "They worshipped something," he whispered, "something under the ocean." Then the water moved. At first, it seemed like waves, but slowly, something enormous began rising beneath the black surface. The chamber shook violently. The figures surrounding them suddenly began whispering in different languages. Some voices sounded ancient, others sounded modern. One voice even called Michael by name. Then Robert's lantern went out. Darkness swallowed the chamber instantly. Panic erupted. Michael heard splashing water, screams, and something massive moving beneath the surface. He grabbed Peter and ran blindly toward the tunnel entrance. Behind them, the whispers became louder, closer, hungry. When they finally escaped back into the jungle, Samuel Mensah and Kwesi were gone. Only the boat remained near the shore. But something was wrong. Wet footprints covered the deck, dozens of them, as if people had climbed aboard from the ocean. Peter Collins wanted to leave immediately, but Robert Hayes was missing. Michael refused to abandon him. Against Peter's protests, Michael returned toward the underground ruins alone, carrying a flashlight. The jungle had become completely silent. Even the drums had stopped. Then Michael heard Robert's voice calling from the darkness, weak, terrified, "Help me." Michael followed the voice deeper into the ruins, but something felt wrong. The voice sounded distant one moment, then suddenly close behind him the next. Finally, he reached the underground entrance again. Robert stood there, motionless in the darkness, facing away from him. "Robert?" Michael whispered. Slowly, Robert turned around. His skin looked pale gray. Black seawater poured from his mouth, and his eyes were completely empty. Michael ran. Behind him, dozens of voices began screaming through the jungle. Not human screams, something worse. When Michael reached the beach, Peter Collins had already started the boat engine. Together, they escaped the island just before sunrise, but the nightmare followed them home. During the journey back, Peter became increasingly paranoid. He claimed he could hear whispers coming from beneath the boat at night. Sometimes he saw figures moving underwater beside them. 3 days later, Peter disappeared from his cabin during a storm. The crew found the door locked from the inside. Only seawater remained on the floor. Michael Carter returned to America alone. But according to newspaper archives from the late 1960s, he never published his full story. Friends described him as deeply traumatized. He developed severe insomnia. He refused to go near oceans, and he constantly filled notebooks with drawings of black-eyed figures rising from the sea. In 1971, Michael vanished from a hotel near the coast of Florida. Police discovered wet footprints leading from his room directly toward the beach. His body was never found. Years later, fragments of his unfinished journals surfaced online through collectors and historians. One final passage continues to disturb readers today. The island was never abandoned. It was feeding. Modern researchers still debate whether the sleeping shore truly exists. Some believe the story was exaggerated by fear and local superstition. Others point toward unexplained disappearances in the Gulf of Guinea and strange sonar readings detected beneath parts of the Atlantic Ocean. Even today, fishermen along parts of African coastlines still refuse to sail during certain nights of the year. Some claim drums can still be heard beneath the water when the fog becomes too thick, and occasionally, abandoned boats drift back toward shore, completely empty. No crew, no damage, only seawater covering the deck. Because the ocean hides more history than humanity has ever discovered. Entire civilizations disappeared beneath rising seas long before modern history began. And perhaps somewhere beneath the dark waters near Africa's forgotten coast, something ancient is still waiting, watching ships pass overhead, listening, calling, waiting for the next curious soul to follow the drum.